Hey, if you're a fan of the Eagles, I think you're going to enjoy this video. As you know, in 1976, the Eagles put out the album that would probably kind of become their signature album, which was Hotel California. This is one of my copies of it. I actually have a whole bunch of copies of this album. And looks like this one was owned by Jan at some point. Anyway, this record, when it was put out, it took the world by storm. I mean, it won awards, it sold like crazy. I think in the end, this thing has sold something in the neighborhood of 26 million copies worldwide. And it had just such great music on it. And it was kind of interesting, a turning point for the band. And I'll show you on the inside here, you'll see a picture of the guys in the group. There's Randy Meisner. Part of what makes this album interesting is this was his last album with the band. Then you have Glenn Frey. Then you have Joe Walsh, and then similarly, this is Joe Walsh's first album with this group, and he kind of brought a new sound to the group when he joined. And then of course there's Don Henley and Don Felder, and then there's the back of the album. But this ended up being such an important record, and the song Hotel California itself is so fascinating because the song is about 6.5 minutes long, but they did something so interesting with the production. So really original, because what they did is they're 2/3 the way through the song. Remember, this is a 6.5 minute song. 2/3 the way through the song, they give you that incredible line, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. And then what do? They go into a guitar solo. And the guitar solo goes on for over 2 minutes, and then the song's over. They never come back to the chorus. They end the song with 1/3 of the song just being a guitar solo. Anyway, you would expect most hit songs, at least at some point, they're going to refrain back to the chorus. Welcome to the hotel. They never go back to it. Matter of fact, the singing doesn't even end on the chorus, which most popular songs do. Like I said, they have the length of a perfect song, which is a little over 4 minutes, but then they throw a 2-minute guitar solo at the end, which, by the way, ended up being an incredible decision from a production standpoint, because it's so haunting and so beautiful. But anyway, just kind of a unique thing. If you hadn't really noticed or thought about that they did a real change there. They did something very, very unique from a production standpoint. And there were so many cool songs on this album. And this is why I wanted to read this to you. So what I have here is I have a newspaper article that was printed. It was kind of a review of the album that was published on December 31st of 1976. And the title of this article is Hotel California is Sordid Beautiful. And the reason I liked this article, and I wanted to share it with you, is this guy that does this review literally goes through every song and just comments on what he thinks they mean and his thoughts on it. Very briefly, he doesn't go into a lot of detail. This isn't really long. But what I'm hoping is that if you're a fan of this group and this album and this stuff like I am, that you'll tell me what you think about what this guy thinks about these songs and what they're about. Because this was such a pivotal album in the history of popular music. I'd love to get your feedback on this. Okay, so here's the article. This was printed, it looks like originally in the Chicago Sun-Times, although the one we're reading is from the Parsons Sun, December 31st, 1976. The new Eagles album, Hotel California, takes the band's predilection for combining beautiful music and sordid subject matter to the limit. Never was so much made of wasted days and wasted nights, of empty lives, of hollow love affairs, of self-deceit, of man and woman at their ugliest, and yet all the misery is wound up in haunting melodies, breathtaking arrangements, and inspired instrumentals and vocals. In the end, listening to Hotel California is such sweet sorrow that once you start playing it, you find it hard to stop. The album is built around a theme of sorts, life in Southern California. The opening and closing songs, Hotel California and The Last Resort, define the territory. And in between, except for a couple of songs, are slices of life in the California spirit. And by the way, just as a side note, the Eagles did such a great job of just capturing that that essence of what it's like living in the Southwest, or what the Western United States, if the Western United States could make a sound, it would sound like the Eagles. And he just kind of touches on that idea here, that it captures that California spirit. Okay. Then, so he goes on and he starts going through these tracks. He mentioned the Hotel California. Now he goes, New Kid in Town. There's the new kid in town who's the latest celebrity, sought out by everyone until the next new face takes his place. There's the couple chasing thrills and using each other up in their life in the fast lane. There are the victims of Los Angeles angst, drifting aimlessly through wasted time. There's the victim of love playing her role for all it can get her. Among these are two songs that fit in mood, if not theme. Joe Walsh and Joe Vitale's Pretty Maids All in a Row is a bittersweet remembrance of the past, and Randy Meisner's Try and Love Again. The most upbeat song on the album is about loneliness dispelled by new love. The rest of the songs are mostly by Don Henley and Glenn Frey, with help here and there from Walsh, Don Felder, and J.D. Southern. As usual, their lyrics are impeccable. Henley and Frey turn phrases like no other songwriters practicing today, but they aren't hung up on hooks. Their songs flow even when it seems they shouldn't. For instance, The Last Resort begins with a girl moving to California from Providence, Rhode Island, and ends up with an indictment of the destructiveness of Western civilization. It's not spelled out like that, of course, but the message is awfully heavy. Not quite heavy-handed, of course. The Eagles never go over the top. Or take Hotel California, which manages to combine a Spanish feel with a reggae beat and starts off as a vocal song, then turns into a guitar showcase for Walsh and Felder. This is what I was talking about at the beginning, that it was such an interesting production choice to do that. New Kid follows Hotel's fiery ending and seems at first too fast to come down, almost weak, but then it keeps building. And as soon as it gets to the first harmony, the Eagles' edge creeps in and you're being wrenched again. There's so much on this album. Even the artsy bit, a brief string arrangement of the theme from Wasted Time. And that is interesting too, because the first song on the second side is called, was it Wasted Time Reprise? They don't list it on the album cover, but it's basically just an instrumental with a string arrangement. Yeah, Wasted Time Reprise. It's a string arrangement of the Wasted Time theme. It's really nice. Okay, let's see here. Works well. It's reminiscent of those haunting interludes by Jack Nietzsche on the first Neil Young album. From the lyrics standpoint, it's interesting to note that while drugs seem to play a large part in the Los Angeles lifestyle pictured by the Eagles, they're viewed as one of the more negative and degrading aspects. Hotel California is not an anti-drug album, though. It's not even an anti-life album, although it may seem so at times. The music is too fresh and free for that. No, what the Eagles are doing here is telling cautionary stories. They're playing the prophets, pointing the finger, and forecasting doom in their lyrics. But the music keeps tugging at us and telling us that if we take heed, there is hope. This album should be a strong contender for the best album of the year in the annual Chicago Sun-Times poll. And this is the last week to send postcards with your pick of the 2 best albums of 1976. And then he tells you who to send it to get that. And this album, like I said, did end up winning some awards. And I believe Hotel California and New Kid in Town both became '1 selling songs on the Billboard, and Life in the Fast Lane hit something like number 12. So not only did the album hit the top of the charts, but it literally spawned off some hit singles that just, and anyway, and all of us have heard these songs so many times. For me, and those of you that follow this channel know, I spent a lot of my early teenage years listening to heavy metal and hard rock. And this album came out way before I was even paying attention to anything. And it was many years after, so I didn't like it at first because of the kind of music I listened to when I was an early teen. But as I matured, I started going, this stuff's like some of the best music ever made. And then I became a big Eagles fan, and I have a whole bunch of their stuff in the record collection. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I loved listening to what this guy had to say about these songs and what they meant. And I'd love to get your feedback too. How did they impact you? When you first heard Hotel California, what did that feel like to you? Did it have the same kind of impact on you that it had on other people, myself included, that it carried that spirit, that energy of that region of the country? And then these other songs, how did those impact you also? Even considering the song in some ways, this album, some ways, as a concept album, all around that, a cautionary tale, as this guy says. Anyway, please follow the channel. Like the video, share your thoughts. Love to hear those things down in the comments. And with that, as always, have yourself a fantastic day.